Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee today, February 26, 2024. Roll call.
Benayeg, Johnson,
Here.
Egal, Yang,
Present.
Hayes.
Present.
Oh, Pichler, Kanowski. We have a quorum.
All right, first, we will need to approve the minutes from the January 29th, 2024. Oh, geez,
You skipped the
I
first
skipped the
page.
first page. I'm sorry. Let's do this correctly. Let's start with the land acknowledgement.
I'll do that. We are gathered here on the lands that were originally home to the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations. We honor the Menominee and Ho-Chunk communities and are grateful for their stewardship of the land and waters. We acknowledge these ancestral grounds as sacred and remember the complex history of settler colonialism on these lands and the effects that persist today. We commit to a restorative and healing relationship of the original inhabitants in our community.
Thank you, Mia. And the mission statement will be read by Anne Marie.
The mission of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is to create a more welcoming, connected, and equitable Oshkosh by consciously including the richness and complexities of marginalized voices in its planning and function.
Thank you, Anne Marie. With that, we will need to approve the minutes from the January 29th, 2024 meeting. We need a motion to approve as written
So
and a
moved.
second.
Second.
And any discussion regarding the minutes? None. All right. And are you taking a roll vote or a?
I think we can do an aye or a
Okay.
nay.
All in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
And it doesn't appear as though we have any citizen statements to the committee.
We do not.
And any public comment on agenda items?
No public comments.
All right, so then we will move on to our guest. We have Tom Perry, the Executive Director of the Winnebago Area Literacy Council, who will be providing us with some information about what the Literacy Council does, where they're located in their fresh new space. And so thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me here tonight. As you said, my name is Tom Perry. I'm the Executive Director of the Winnebago Area Literacy Council. I've been in the position almost 6 years now. I came to the Oshkosh area following a career in health and human services. And after my children graduated from college and I had no debt, I decided that I didn't need the big job, the big C-level job anymore, and I needed to do something to get back to my roots, which was the personal mission, things that were close to my heart. It's often said that people who have been in social work or human services that their hearts are bigger than their brains, and that may be the case, but this has been my career for 35 years now, and starting to look into the twilight of my working experience. But at any rate, the Winnebago Area Literacy Council has been in existence at the Oshkosh Public Library for 35 years now. For those 35 years, they've been at the Oshkosh Public Library. And it was started in 1989 by the Friends of the Oshkosh Library and the local Altrusa Club, who felt that there was not enough around to combat adult literacy. The mission has obviously morphed many times over the years, and our mission is on a handout that I gave to you, is that we strengthen our diverse community by developing and delivering free learner-centered literacy programs for adults and their families. There's important words in there, especially the free, because literacy and poverty are very closely related. And there are a lot of statistics out there that show how that relation is. If you are in middle class or upper class households, every child has at least 13 books in their own personal library. And if you're below middle class, there's one book amongst 13 children. It really says a lot about the ability that's out there and how poverty is very closely related to literacy. The parents' literacy, which is what we mainly deal with, is directly related to the children's literacy. If your parents are not literate, chances are very high that children will not be literate. And that's why we're such an important partner for the Oshkosh Area School District, Neenah School District, Menasha School District, Amro, Winneconne. We're an important partner for all of those school districts. And you'll notice that we said Winnebago Area Literacy Council. We used to be called Winnebago County Literacy Council. And a lot of people would confuse us as a county or a government agency. We're not. We are non-for-profit, solely working on the generosity of our community, and that creates a few hurdles as we go down this path. So we serve two different types of individuals. We serve U.S. citizens who need help with literacy to obtain something like the GED, a promotion, bringing other fulfillment to their lives. We've had some interesting individuals that I would consider to be your friends, your neighbors, your aunt, or your uncle. We're working with several individuals right now that are trying to get their GED. We're working with several individuals that are trying to get a job promotion. We're working with individuals that are all points in between there. We had once a 74-year-old man who approached us, and he said that he needed help writing a letter. And we said, well, this is really strange. You've made it 74 years what we call faking it. And he said he was pulled out of school when he was 7 years old to work on the family farm. Very common for someone his age. Never learned to read or write. He'd always promised his wife that he would write her a love letter. She was diagnosed with dementia. He needed to do it in a hurry. He worked with a tutor, an individual tutor, for about 9 months, wrote his letter. We never saw him again, but that's what was important to him. So a few years back, we changed what we did, and we said, you know what? Classes are interesting, but no adult wants to learn how to conjugate a verb. No adult does. We learn differently than children. Children have sponges as part of their brains. Adults have big old rocks. It takes a lot longer for things to get into our brains, and therefore our learning situation has to change as well. We were seeing that people weren't happy with our classes. People weren't happy with our volunteer tutors because we were giving them very strict and set curriculum to teach, which included things like verb conjugations. What we really saw was that people wanted to learn how to do things on their own, learn a little more survival English right away, those types of things. And we actually talked to a nice young lady. We said, what do you want to learn? And she said, well, we're new to the country. My husband had something called spaghetti. I want to learn to make that for him. That was her first lesson. She now has a house and a very good job, a contributing member to our community. But that was how she started, was learning how to make spaghetti. So we decided to go from the classroom model to an individualized, centered plan, which means we strive to get everybody we can a one-to-one tutor. You learn better that way. Everybody in an adult class is at a different learning level. You learn better when it's one-to-one tutoring. And so overnight, our satisfaction went through the ceiling. So the two types of people we serve, I mentioned, one is the U.S. citizens, but the second is refugees and immigrants and asylees, and I want to be very clear on that definition right now since there's a lot of talk about that at the county level. Refugees and asylees are here legally. There's a process that they've gone through. Sometimes that process is 20 years long in order to get here, but they're here legally. A vast majority of the immigrants are also here legally, and granted, there are some who aren't. We don't, as an agency and a nonprofit, ask. It's not important. You want to learn English? We will teach you English. Oshkosh and the whole Fox Valley area is a resettlement city. So the vast majority of people we serve are not born in this country. And as such, we get people who come to us who aren't even literate in their own language. They can speak it, but they can't read or write their own language in some cases, which makes education even more challenging. However, some of the people who also come to us are extremely literate in their own language or other languages, and we have doctors and dentists and lawyers and attorneys and engineers and teachers, you name it. We have those people that have come to us through whatever world situation has brought them this way. We also have soldiers from the Afghan army whose only crime was to guard the outside of the American embassy. because that's what their commanders told them to do as a unit, and because of that, they need to leave their country. And many of the soldiers are situations very similar to even our own soldiers, where they're doing that as an escape to get away, and they may not be literate in their own language. So who are we resettling in this area right now? It's really big. We have the Congolese, or the Sudanese, Central Africans. That's the biggest group so far. Syrians, Afghans. We have people from South America, and lately we're getting a lot of individuals who are finally starting to come to us. We've been told for 2 years to expect this from Pakistan. People are surprised by the group that comes. Obviously, our community identifies people from Central Africa. There's a lot of issues with the people that we serve. Individuals who come to us, say, with a Muslim faith as part of their background, you can clearly identify many of the women in the community. And this poses some challenges for us. Our organization is designed to teach people the English language. What our organization frequently does, and why we've grown so much, is we've become a de facto case management organization, because after about 6 months, most support for newly arrived residents of our community stops, which means in that 6 months, your apartment's got to be settled, your schooling's got to be settled, your job has got to be settled, your transportation's got to be settled. And if you think about it as adults, I don't know how many of us in this room could do that if we just picked up and moved to some place overnight. So we become a pseudo case management organization. We deal with the people who have problems. They come to us with mail. They come to us with all their scam mail. They come to us with landlord problems. And there are a lot of them because they are placed in situations that I would deem to be substandard. They come to us with work problems because now money's running out and they need to be able to feed their family, and some families are quite large. Many of the ladies who come to us from Central Africa come to us without husbands because they have been conscripted into whatever conflict they've been fleeing from, and they have many children. Many of those children have multiple fathers. Those fathers come from many of the soldiers that they've met along the way. The stories that they tell you could make anybody cry. However, they look forward to the next day. Tomorrow's a new day. The attitude that they have could be shared amongst everybody. However, we see post-traumatic stress. We see a lot of that type of stuff. We see a lot of non-educational issue among many of the women. You get a married couple that comes, the man has some education, the woman has none. We have addressed these issues in multiple ways, but we become not only the literacy agency, but that case management agency. What if there's a pregnancy? What does the person do? Nobody's there to tell them, we tell them. So we have many classes and many ways that we assist. We have English classes, beginner English, more English. We do citizenship classes. The last 4 years, the request for citizenship has been through the roof. We have now a woman and children's English class. We used to call it family literacy, but we noticed when the men would come, including myself, just to stop by, conversation would stop. Or if it was potluck day, and you can see I never pass up a potluck, but if it was potluck day, I would come by and say, hey, this is great, guys, I really appreciate it. And they wouldn't go up and get the food until I went first. Well, I don't play those games, but I understand where they're at. So now when it's potluck day, I'm 10 minutes late. But it was very, very clear that the women were not talking in class if there were males present because of the cultural norm that was okay with them. One day the women in the class discovered that one of the other women in the class was not only a woman doctor, but a woman's doctor of women's issues, who, by the way, can't even be a CNA in this country. We won't get into that either. When they found out that she was a doctor and understood some of the things, they started asking her questions, and 2.5 hours later, they were still asking her questions. And these were things that all of us were like, you don't know this? Oh my goodness. So the Women and Children's class now, at least 8 times a year, has experts coming in who are doctors, dentists, domestic violence specialists, you name it, somebody getting to talk about women's issues, will have them come and talk about women's issues. And the idea is just to grow people personally, because there's a lot of things that have to be done. Don't forget, a lot of role is you raise the babies. That's your role. Well, there's no educational advocacy, there's none of that kind of stuff either, and it's important to even say to a doctor that my child has a fever. So we're teaching those kind of things as part of adult literacy, because that's what's important to learn first. So because of all this stuff, we have grown immensely. We went from about 200 lives that we touched a year to last year, 625. I've gone from 4 staff to 14. And the library gives us the space out of their generosity they have for the 35 years. I don't have room anymore, so we had to actually look for outside space. So now we have 2 locations, the Oshkosh Public Library and now at 111 North Main Street in the U.S. Bank building. And Lakeisha was mentioning the open house that we had last week. We moved over to that space 1 month ago with 18 people in one class on Monday and Wednesday mornings, and this morning I went over there were 42. We are out of space over there already, and we are still being told about 200 or more people to be placed before the end of the year. Oshkosh has become the center of these placements. Appleton has run out of low-cost housing. They don't get the placements that they used to get because it is all about the low-cost housing. What we're seeing is because the university is down in enrollment, some of those housing units are becoming available, and that's where individuals are being placed. But as we know, student housing may not be up to a lot of people's standards, but it's still good. It's just different. So we're finding some issues with apartment living. You're talking about people who have come that may have lived in a hut for the last 18 years, literally a hut for the last 18 years, who are now being placed into a home with a stove, refrigerator, washer, dryer. We have complaints a lot of times about washing clothes in a bathtub. It's what they know. It's what they do. So we've decided that we need to go into housing, because there are issues with housing. There are issues with just identification. We know that we have to find people that are willing to rent to individuals whose skin color may not be white. The ironic part of it is the majority of individuals who come to us, unless you are literally from Central Africa, when you fill out an identification, they're identified as white. Yes, the Burmese come, Southeast Asian, but Afghans, Syrians, all of those people who come to us that people don't think are one way, that's how they're identified. But you know what? The skin might be a little more olive-toned, and so there's the issue. The other issue is that people don't understand why people are here. So let's talk about people from the Middle East, especially Syria. I've heard people in the community come to me and say, well, aren't they our sworn enemies? Well, the reason why people from Syria are here is because they helped our country over there and they can't live there anymore. Makes sense. Same as the Afghans. Somebody helped us, or there was a target for whatever reason, they can't live there anymore. It's not that all these people are going to come to us and do harm to this country. These people come to us and do amazing, amazing things. And we want to get them a little faster, because a strong, diverse, inclusive community is what's the healthiest for any organization. So we would like everybody to know that we have this mission statement that I said, delivering free learner-centered things, but we have an unofficial mission statement that we call eliminating barriers to literacy. What is it that we eliminate? How do we eliminate the barriers to literacy? And we've had people say, can't come to class because they couldn't afford a bus pass. I'm buying the bus pass. Can't come to class because groceries are too expensive. I can't do too much about groceries, but we can hook them up with food pantries and things like that, and the community partners are wonderful. But you know what I am going to hook them up with? I can get loads of free diapers. I can get loads of feminine hygiene supplies, and those types of things help your budget stretch too, so that you can get to your job, get to class, get to wherever it is that you need to get. We're going to do all that kind of stuff, and we're going to continue because there will be no barriers to literacy. One of the newest positions that we just developed in our organization is a transportation trainer. Frequently people are like, here's your apartment, there you go. And they say, well, how do I go get groceries? How do I get to my work? How do I get to class? I have somebody that takes them on the bus, assesses what their ability is, picks them up at their home, meets them at their home, takes them to the nearest bus stop, shows them how to get from point A to point B. We do this because it's important, and it's not just getting to our class, but it's getting to Bella Clinic or getting to the grocery store, whichever one they want to go to, so that they can make these things work for them and their families. The last thing I wanted to bring up that we do that's really, really important is that we're one of only a few literacy agencies in the entire nation. Last time I checked, there was only 17 that actually has a job placement program. We help people find jobs. And we're talking about good jobs. We're not talking about being a greeter at a multinational store. We're talking about good, well-paying jobs. When the Afghan population came here about 18 months ago, we were able to secure 61 positions at Amcor. Those positions paid, based on their shift schedule, almost $25 an hour. If you talk about an entry-level position, paying something like that, it's very good money for the individuals there. Last I checked, there were about 48 of those 61 still employed with them. The people that left were the dentists and shopkeeper and you know, lawyers and people like that who got jobs eventually more into the field that they were interested in, but there's still a lot of people working for that particular company. As a matter of fact, my job development person has 78 companies in the local area who have contacted or asking for people to come work for them. What they know that a lot of the community doesn't know is that the individuals we work with are loyal, amazing workers. The companies know this. Why can't we create that community to understand the value here as well? It's tough and it's hard to do. So we do those kind of things. We have placed the doctors, the dentists, the lawyers, the teachers, those kind of people into really well-paying jobs, and I always find it ironic that the person who's doing this sometimes gets paid less than the people that she places, but that's what we do to make this work. And those types of things are the things that we do to make sure that community and that family is as strong as they can possibly be. The last thing I want to set you up with is that many of the people who come to us from the patriarchal societies that end up coming this way, when I say, what's the first thing you want to learn? Most of the men will say, well, I want to learn how to buy a house and live in the community, and most of the women say, I want to learn how to drive a car. So, and vote. And those are things that, if you think about it, it would be such a simple thing, but it's the most important thing in their lives, and so we'll help facilitate that as well. So a lot that we do out there, we partner with other nonprofits. 3 of the last 5 families selected by Habitat for Humanity have been people we've referred to them who have come to us from other places in the world. So it's a good thing, but it's hard for us to do what it is that we do, being as small as we are, relying on a public dollar. We have to find those donors. We have to find those volunteers. We have to find those foundations and those types of things in order to make this work. We have to figure out a way to save some money so we can be here 30 years from now, because everybody in this room knows that this need is never going to go away. We just have to be ready for the next earthquake or the next conflict or whatever it is in whatever country somewhere in the world, so that we can assist making this community stronger. So we do a lot. It's a lot to put out there for everybody. We're looking at trying to get an apartment program going. The thought is that we have these things where we say, yes, we're going to do this tiny home, or we're going to do that, and it meets a great need in our community. But once again, when we have individuals who come to us who've never had an experience before, they often stay in these places that might not be as good. We want to have a program that graduates the people up eventually to home ownership, so that we really have strong contributing members of our community. So that's what it's really all about. The mission is teaching, but what it's really about is the strongest community we can possibly have. So that's where we're at. That's the old social worker in me speaking. I guess it never dies, but it's an important part of what we do. The form that I gave you talks about all of our programs, talks about the needs, 1 in 7 adults. That's pretty amazing. And then our resettlement numbers, the people that are coming here, and if you can see that within the last 12 months there's been 187. It's big. That's big. People come to us. We get secondary migration. They're here. They've been happy with everything that's been happening. They have friends or families that were moved to Maryland or someplace like that. They're moving back out this way because they like what they're doing here the best. Biggest complaint's the winter, especially when you're coming from Central Africa with just sandals on your feet, but we work to find those shoes and coats and things like that as well. So, but it's been a pretty mild winter for some people's first one. I'm waiting for the hammer to drop, right? So, but at any rate, we do it all. We can always look for more people. The one-to-one volunteers is the bread and butter. And of course, the people who can financially support are very important as well. But the one-to-one volunteers, I'd rather have 100 of those than one more person with a big checkbook, because that's what we do, is provide that individual. And there's many people who've started with us and said, you know what, I'll take another one. I've got somebody who's got 8 people right now they're working with because they love it so much. So we're trying to look for ways to apply for grants and other types of things to get an apartment program, to get a workplace program, to get those types of things out there. You know, the funds that we have available are available to everybody. I'm excited about the ARPA funds that are available, but I know that everybody and their brother are applying for them too. So, you know, it's a dream. Could it happen? Sure. If it does happen, we'll apply for something else. But those are the types of things that we do to keep constantly growing, because this community needs it and deserves it. So, I can be open to questions or anything like that if you'd wish.
Your presentation really touched my heart. I was a refugee back in the late 70s when I came to America, and we encountered all the issues that you presented tonight, probably much more. There were programs such as this in those days, and I could totally understand and relate to everything that you taught tonight. Thank you for coming in. How do we make a donation?
Well, our website has everything that you need to know on that. You can come by our office. We give you a tour at any time as well, or you could do it in person that way. But it's really, really important. And you know, when you say you came from the 70s, people are still coming from your part of the world because there's family members and that kind of stuff. The Burmese population, which is a little different, one last person that came to us was in a hut for 17 years before her name finally came up. And when your name comes up, you're told, okay, you're going to Sweden next week. Get ready. You're going to America next week. You're going to Australia next week. You don't get to pick. And then once you're here, you're like, you're going to cold Wisconsin in February. You don't get to pick. You just you go. Your family and your journey, you're now on your 4th generation here. Right. And people still look at you as if you are different.
I was just at my my homeland in December, November, December, and I climbed like 3 hours on foot to the very top of the mountain where my village used to be. It's all forest and jungles now. But then at the base of the mountains, there was still a village with huts, and my mother's sister still lives there. And I could relate that if I was still there, I would be living in one of those huts.
Mhm.
So I had the opportunity to go back and see what life was like today versus 75 before we moved out of the country. So,
Right.
Yeah, and then became a refugee in Thailand for 4 years, and then coming to the United States as a refugee, and encountered all sorts of issues, just like everything you mentioned. And,
Right.
I think that the programs that you put together will be very, very beneficial to these individuals in 10, 15, 20 years down the road. When you look at me 40 years ago, I would never imagine that I would be sitting here meeting with these people in the city of Oshkosh and be part of this journey with everybody in a community. And the path that I got here, I'm thinking of these people that you're talking about today, that I'm hoping that in 30, 40 years that they will be where we're at now, or probably even better.
Right.
And that's the hope that you, Literacy Council, and all of us want to see these people move forward as.
Yes, because there's not a day that we don't learn something as well. And I mean, I'm going to tell you, when somebody comes in with some fresh spring rolls because they're that's how they pay. Oh my goodness, you're like, this is real. I mean, it is so good. But just the niceties, or somebody down the street sees you and you see this, a right hand to the heart. I know what that means, but a majority of people don't. That's a sign of respect from that man that I pass down the street or in the store or whatever, that I make sure that I give that sign of respect back for that particular country. Or, you know that somebody comes from a certain country, Americans love to do this, not good in some cultures. So, you know, you just learn those types of things to say, okay, I get that, I understand these types of things, but to make things better for everybody involved, that's what's the most important. So, very interesting is that last year somebody gifted us through their father's estate about 40 story cloths. And we just love those, and we put them up and move them around and that kind of stuff, because it's just an incredible, the story is incredible. The reason those cloths are there is, of course, not as incredible, but the story behind them are amazing. And so we love to have those kind of things because it shows the journey. And the journey is harrowing. I mean, soldiers, planes, Mekong River, I mean, wild animals, those are all there. And it just goes to show how incredible these people are when they talk about the children's fathers, and you're just like, oh my God. And yet tomorrow's a new day. You just don't understand how important it is that we have members like this, increasing the diversification of our community, because there's something that every single person can teach us, all of us, if we're willing to learn.
So you mentioned your website, but do you want to just tell people what that is,
Sure.
or tell people what to Google?
Sure. Our website is winlit, WINLIT.org, winlit.org. You can also just Google Winnebago Area Literacy Council or Facebook it. One of the things that I did 6 years ago when I came is I'm not a big social media guy because I'm of a certain age. But I knew how important it was, and so one of the positions is our events and social media person, and she posts more than one thing every single day and all the different things, so we are very current, very up to date. What you see is what you're going to get with us, and it's all out there ready to be seen. I think we have an excellent Facebook. If we've got nothing to post, I'm going to find somebody else's stuff to post, because that's what it's about, is being in a community. So, yep.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I heard you need volunteers to continue to help the vast amount of people who could still use it that you don't have the ability to help right now.
Right.
And if somebody does need help, is there a process for them to follow?
There are two processes. One is you can come by our office and just talk to my volunteer and admissions coordinator, Mike Howe. She'll set you up, but also you can send something through the website or social media, those types of things, and just send an inquiry and somebody will get back to them within the day to see what it is that the needs are and what we can do to help and how we can set that up.
And I'm sorry if I missed this, but did you talk about the summer program that you have? With
Oh, certainly. I didn't talk about that. We do have a summer program. The summer program started with a need about 6 summers ago now, where we got a call from the Oshkosh Area School District and said, guess what, we're not going to do this program for immigrant and refugee children, so is there something you can do? And it was literally 2 weeks before the end of the school year, and I said, yeah. So we set up a summer program in 2 weeks, and we had a volunteer who was a professor at UWO and said, hey, you need to help us out, and he did. And soon after that, I got a grant opportunity from the state that goes only to schools, and I called them and I said, why just schools? Why not me? And they said, well, put in an application, and we got funded. So we were able to serve these kids, but we serve kids who are new to the area during the summer as an extension of school in an arts-based curriculum. We've partnered with University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh and their Arts Core program so that the student teachers are the ones who lead this class. They develop the curriculum, they develop the classes, the schedules, all that other type of stuff. We just give them what money that they need to make it work, and they teach an arts-based curriculum to these individuals with the whole immersion of English type of thing to keep that going, because there is a summer slump, and I believe it's called summer slump, where you lose skills over the summer, and we want to keep these kids talking. So there's 2 programs. The school, we call it New Voices, which is a summer school type of thing where they come to summer school. We have several locations throughout the area. And they come for 2.5 or 3 hours and learn that arts-based curriculum. And then we have a mentoring, youth mentoring grant, where what we do is a little bit different than what most mentoring programs do, but we do a peer-to-peer mentoring. So we actually work with high school students to be the peer mentor to individuals. And the idea is to teach them English, but also some of our culture. So their job is to go bowling, their job is to go to the movies, to go to a football game in the fall, that type of thing. And that program has been very successful. There are still groups after 5 years who get together every week, once a week at somebody's house to do cooking, to learn about cultural cooking or something like that, or to learn to make a pizza, or things like that. And they've been doing it for years, even into college, now that they keep this relationship. When we started, we had 9 kids that we did that very first year, and we were doing it in the 2nd floor of the library. COVID came and we had to do something different. We actually found a local church who has a beautiful outdoor space. We were able to do it there. This last summer, 68 kids, and it's looking like it's going to be a lot more this summer as well. So it takes a lot. The best part of this program is if you go through our program and you graduate your high school clean, without any issues, you are going to be guaranteed admission to a UWO school if that's where you choose to go.
Wow.
So not going to be Fond du Lac anymore, but Oshkosh or Fox Cities, but you will be guaranteed admission. And we have now had 2 people who have done that, and one is going to be an attorney and the other one says she's going to be a doctor, and I have no doubt.
So what ages does it serve?
We start now with demand is so much in junior high. At first it was high school, but now it's junior high through graduation.
Okay.
So it is an amazing program. It takes a lot of volunteers, but those kids from the university are incredible in what they do. So It's an amazing program.
And this summer, the dates would be June 12th.
Something like that,
July
right
14th.
after school's over.
June
give-
12th through the 14th, with
Yeah.
the 4th of July off.
Right. Right, for 5 to 6 weeks. And then we'll do another program mainly just for junior highs right after that, but we frequently get kids that go through all 9, 12 weeks, whatever we do for that particular program, because they just love it so much. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. For that program, we feed them. That's our biggest expense, is food. Food. And the kids are hungry. But we need, money for that. We need money for other types of expenses. But mainly it's just having people out there. If you want to see what 68 kids look like on the UWO campus on University Day, whew, it's something. You need a lot of eyes out there to help out. But they love it. They love it. They love the cafeteria the best with the free ice cream machine. But that's what made people say, you know what, I never thought I could do this or come to a higher institution of higher education, and they are just all stoked that they can do that. At the end of the summer, there's a compilation of their artwork, the things about them. We get a publisher to put it in a book, and we give it out to each family as a memento of what they did during the summer. So it's a really, really good, strong program. The school district loves it because these kids come back ready to go at the end of the summer. So,
Any other questions at all?
It's amazing.
It is.
Thank you.
thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you,
thank you
Executive
for
Director
coming.
Perry.
No
We
problem.
appreciate you coming. So you can either stick around with us or you're free to go. It's up to you.
I'll move the microphone a little away.
All right, sounds good. All right, that was excellent. All right, next up we have the roundtable where we can share DEI-related activities and events here in the area. Anyone? So I just have a few. One being Women's History Month starts March 1st, and so University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh does have a number of events through their Women's Center this month. One of the things that kicks off their program is essentially like a panel discussion, and that will be at Reeve, and that is from 6 to 8 on Friday. But if you go to the UW-Oshkosh's website, I think I have uwoshkosh.edu/Women's Center, you can see a list of the events that they will have for the month of March in celebration of Women's History Month. The other thing that I have is Oshkosh North High School will be having a Black History Month program. It's open to the public, an assembly 10 o'clock on Thursday, this week Thursday, through Oshkosh North. Although they ask for RSVPs, that is simply so that they could have a number in mind of who to expect, but it is open to the public.
All right, March is also Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. I am not aware of any specific events around that, but just like to mention that. And I did notice, that the Mung Center Scholarship
Yes.
posting, if you just want to share a little bit about that.
Yes, we are going to give away another $10,000, and we're going to be doing that during our Memorial Day Festival, which is coming up on May 25th and 26th. So specifically, we're going to be giving out on Saturday morning on the 25th.
It looks like the deadline for that is April 15th. So just thought I noticed that and wanted to
Thank
make
you.
sure we shared that as well.
It's kind of far outside. I wasn't sure if I
I
was
know.
supposed
Well,
to say
I mean,
something
but
about
I
it.
figure if people can apply, it's better to tell people earlier than
Yes.
later. So, yep.
And if there are no other events or activities to share, we have outstanding items next on the agenda.
Yep, I just have, of course, I try to look at future items on the council. Council does have a strategic planning session March 4th coming up, and Also, from a city standpoint, the State of the City video release will be on March 27th, and a lot of great information about what the city's been up to for the last year. So I definitely, I enjoy personally watching that and seeing all of the accomplishments.
Also on council's agenda for tomorrow would be, there's a continuing discussion regarding whether the city should move from a council member being mayor to a president and vice president of council title. So that's continuing discussion for that. We also have the wheel tax that has been a hot button issue in relation to special assessments. So those are the two things that are coming tomorrow. One other thing, the ARPA application deadline is March 1st. So there's still time for organizations to apply through the City of Oshkosh for ARPA funding, and this is the ARPA funds that were for non-infrastructure and non-city organizations. So this is not only just nonprofit, you do not have to be a nonprofit in order to apply, but that deadline is fast approaching, still time to put in that application. You can find that on the City of Oshkosh's website. Any future agenda items? We do have the Oshkosh Area United Way presenting at our next DEI meeting on March 25th, 2024. And then any other items to place onto the agenda? I do believe that it's appropriate for council to address what would be an opening on this committee because I am not running for city council. My seat being the liaison, the city council liaison to the DEI committee. Without me being on city council, that would mean I would not be on this committee. And so it will be important for us to discuss next steps from there and place that on the agenda. Any other items? If not, I'll take a motion in a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.